Hey, what's up? Good morning, everybody. Good morning to you. It is Coffee Conversation with Greg J, 9 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, the 8th of September. We've got a lot to do and a lot to say today, so we'll just get right into it. First of all, just want to make sure you all are okay. Is everything peaceful in your life? How's your health? How's your balance, quarantine time? I know we're getting a little stir crazy. Yesterday was Labor Day and a lot of people missing, their outings like we normally would do. It's been an incredible summer with no music festivals, no gatherings, nothing that we are accustomed to out here in Southern California. And I'm sure it's been the same way all across the country with your no matter where you are, certainly in the United States, the summer is full of activities, and certainly around the globe, those of you who are listening in various areas, this quarantine is no joke, is it? Got us hemmed up quite, got a kind of a thing on us, doesn't it? It's hard to balance, but hopefully you're being okay. You're being safe, socially distanced, keeping your mask on and doing everything that they're saying we need to do in order to stay safe and healthy. Got a lot to go on today, so let's just jump right on into these headlines for the morning. We won't keep you long in that way because we've got a big story that we would love to talk about. And as we're listening to the headlines, I'd like for you to, kind of change your lens to a global perspective. You know that we pride ourselves on being a global entity, global news, global lifestyles from our culture all around the world. And today we're going to look over into South Africa and examine an important, tragic, deeply, it's a deep story, man. And we want to examine it. We've got a lot of people on coming from the continent and from here, but let's go to the headlines first. We're hearing the Associated Press right now are saying that Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden and President Donald Trump spent Monday diminishing each other's credentials on the economy and understanding of the American worker as the presidential campaign entered its final post-Labor Day stretch. While workers live by an American code, Biden said that Trump lives by a code of lies, greed, and selfishness as he met with labor leaders in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, a key swing state. Trump, meanwhile, tried to put the halting economic recovery under the best light in a White House press conference where he said Biden and his running mate, Senator Kamala Harris, would destroy this country and would destroy this economy. In the meantime, the prospect of a vaccine to shield Americans from infection has emerged as a major point of contention in the White House race, as Trump accused Democrats of disparaging for political gain a vaccine he repeatedly has claimed would be available before the election. The World Travel and Tourism Council estimates the drop in travel caused by the pandemic will see Africa lose between $53 billion and $120 billion in contributions to its GDP in 2020. Kenya expects a 60% drop in tourism revenue this year. South Africa expects a 75% drop. South Africa's Tourism Business Council says 1.2 million tourism-related jobs are already impacted. South Africa's borders, including virtually all international flights, have been closed for nearly 6 months, and there are no signs of them reopening. California's largest utility shut off power to 172,000 customers to guard against its power lines and other equipment sparking wildfires. High winds are forecast for the next 2 days, and fire danger is high throughout wildfire-ravaged California. It was a scorching Labor Day weekend that saw several major fires break out in different parts of the state. I know I had some ashes all over my car yesterday, and haven't gone out to see about today, but it's really, really something, huh? After months of uproar, harsh criticisms, and biting commentary from advocates representing various industries, Governor Gavin Newsom signed AB 2257 into law on September 4th. This legislation is an AB 5 amendment bill, and it will go into effect immediately. AB 2257 builds on the controversial worker misclassification law by clarifying which industries would be exempted from AB 5's restrictions. AB 5, which took effect in January of this year, reclassified millions of independent contractors in California to W-2 employees based on what the state called the ABC test to comply with a 2018 state Supreme Court ruling called the Dynamex decision. You know, we're going to have a coffee conversation about that whole labor thing. It's really important, especially for those of us around the entertainment and music industry. It's worth the conversation. As you know, you guys, unjustified killings by police are at the forefront of our consciousness in these times. 2020 has been a year full of quarantine, uncertainty, and in some places, chaos. It's been seasoned with the spicy notion that police murders are front and center in the American consciousness. But when we consider global implications, we see the hard hand of the police everywhere. So this morning, we're examining a story coming out of South Africa, the story of Nathaniel Julius. So Nathaniel was a 16-year-old shot in the chest by South African police. Now, before we dive into this case, let me share a little bit of background. You know, we've learned from past interviews with our friends in South Africa that the police are especially visible during quarantine. The people feel under siege. We were talking to a friend of ours who said that when she sends her son to the store, you know, she's afraid because the police are really patrolling the streets under this quarantine. The strong presence has been the target of criticism by South African communities who say that quarantine enforcement by the police has been excessive. So here's the story. Nathaniel went to the store to buy a biscuit. He was stopped by the police asking why he's out on the street. Nathaniel, who has Down syndrome, he couldn't answer the police questioning to their satisfaction. So police shot him in the chest, killed him. To date, 3 police officers have been arrested and charged with murder. Needless to say, the community's outraged and has taken to the streets in protests. So today, we're tapping into that story and reaching out to a number of people in South Africa to discuss the case and to examine racial paradigms that we don't really understand in Black America. This is a tragic story, has cultural twist, so pay close attention. Let me just bring in my good friend. You know, we always say tribe. I got to, you know, this is one of my brothers right here who's going to guide us through this examination this morning. Please welcome Coffee Conversations, Pastor Kelvin Sauls, right here in Los Angeles. How are you doing this morning, sir? You there? Got to unmute yourself, my brother.
Good morning. Good morning. Hey, sorry about that.
There he
Good
is.
to be with you, man. And always, we appreciate you opening up this place.
Yes, sir. So, Pastor Sauls, you know, I know you're here in California and everything, and maybe people don't know, or maybe they do know. We'll just remind them. Your hometown is where?
My hometown is South Joburg. That is Colorado Park. That's where I was raised. Went to Middle High School there, and most of my family and childhood friends, you know, still find themselves in that township. And so you always hear me say, and many other people hear me say, that every day I live at the intersection of South Joburg and South Los Angeles. And that has become much, much more apparent. as we deal with police brutality, both here in the city and county of Los Angeles, as well as, in South Africa in general, but in particularly now in my hometown, as we, continue to work, with several organizations, including Black Lives Matter, to hold police accountable here in the city and county of Los Angeles. At the same time, the repressive and oppressive, tactics, and beloved, boy in the community, who lost his life. Really, the same week that John Kesey lost his life. And so that, of course, brought me even more painfully and directly, in the intersection between what's going on around police brutality in the city and county of Los Angeles, as well as in South Africa in general, but particularly my hometown of Park.
All right. So, as I have been talking about this case since I first learned about it, just across social media and everything, and, people, we talk about racism, and I think the assumption is that young Nathaniel was killed by, white officers. Everybody says, "Oh, racism is international, is racism," but this story's got a little twist to it. Can you explain that one for us?
Yes, I mean that, and I did my program, the racial, challenges still in Africa, as well as socioeconomics. My hometown of Colorado Park right now is going through Los Angeles went through in the 80s. A lot of challenges around gangs, drugs, over policing, not a lot of, socioeconomic options, a high rate. So, I mean, when I talk about the intersection of South Job, LA, that's real for me. And so many layers, and I think we have to unpeel each one, very, sensitively, intentionally, strategically, and courageously, so we can talk about the fact that, I mean, what's going on in South Africa right now, for me, it's a perversion of liberation, because a lot of us didn't fight nor die for what our people are experiencing right now. And secondly, of a non-racial South Africa, which was a vision that was codified the Freedom Charter, signed in my club town. That is really inside. Unfortunately, the current South African government really, when it comes to the poor, and when it comes to those who are classified as colored, really what they are doing is what I call a pedagogy of the oppressed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. You said something there that was very important here for our American audience to understand. So you talked about the colored, and I mean, I've made several trips to South Africa, and I know this paradigm, and I also know in my heart how conflicting when we look on our brothers and sisters in South Africa, and we see those that are designated as colored, and it's kind of like, huh? So explain colored to my people here in America so we can have a clear understanding.
And I have some other friends that I've invited to join us. They talk more about it as well, Greg. But a couple weeks ago, I had a program on my podcast called Colorism, was on, that show that was part 2 that came on on the OWN show, Dark Girls, a very, very powerful show, and about, this whole cultural notion, if you light, you white, if you mellow, if you yellow, you mellow, if you black, get to the back. In South Africa was actually codified in the apartheid, constitution, and I call it, racial paternalism. And so what they did was, basically categorize, folk based on the color of their skin. Of course, you had white, and then, the invention of colors, and that was actually invention by apartheid, because a lot of people, classify color, they trace ancestry to the original people, the Khoi and the San people. But again, part of the system of white supremacy is to eradicate indigenous culture, indigenous people, indigenous language, etc. So the Khoi and San were really indigenous people. That was the category of colors. And then the third one was Indians. And these were, individuals that were brought in as indentured, servants from India to fields. That was all English, England connection that facilitated, that, that England had of India ordered from India all over, to manage their, their what they were able to. Then you had then, according to apartheid at the bottom, Africans, natives from various, towns, cultures, Zulu, Xhosa, Ndebele, Tswana, just a variety of, Bantu tribes, but they were all, apartheid, at the bottom. The thing is to understand that these were political classifications. A lot of colors consider themselves black, therefore in a full oppression in so many ways. And so that resulted in, how much governmental resources you will get, etc. So that's basically, complications and the implications, from these categorizations. And so in so many ways, you will hear some of my colleagues here say that the dilemma, in fact, was Don Matera, the poet laureate, from my hometown, he always would say, during apartheid, colors were, were not light enough. Now, in the new colors are not black enough to be considered black. And that's really the dilemma. That is the complication. Is out of that, a lot of communities, where you have a concentration of a lot of Africans who have to be categorized, as, colored, a lot of marginalization, a high unemployment, not communities, and frankly, just downright, denigration, discrimination, and education. Nathaniel, with all of this now working through policing, dehumanization, because of how many, has died. So that the aspect of that we must deal with correctly, directly, and see how we can forward and position ourselves to use it. That's what the Constitution is about right now, and so that's where we are. But it is, in some way, somewhat, there are some implications, but we got to do.
All right. So, Pastor Sauls, you've invited some friends from Johannesburg there. Why don't you go ahead and bless us with the introductions?
I can't see who is on, but I think I saw you have time. Yeah, I gave up who is a childhood friend of mine, and he is one of the pastor in doing a tremendous work in the community there. Prolific preacher, but most importantly, a very, very prophetic organizer, in the community. Is on. Is Dr. Mary on? And
Mary is there somewhere. There. Let's see. Mary, just need you to unmute yourself. And we can't see her though. Oh, there she is.
Mary. Yeah. I'll introduce
Hi
her
there.
while we get.
Okay, we can hear you, but
Adam. Yeah, there she is.
We can't see you.
My camera is it's not on.
You have to give them access to your camera.
Yeah, I'm gonna take her down while she does that one there.
But let me say something, Dr. Mary, as we're working on getting on. She's a Baraguana, is the largest trauma hospital in South Africa, and she that's the hospital that they took Nathaniel to. Yes, the people in my podcast on the base provide us with COVID-19 updates from South Africa around it, but she was position. She also very, very active in the community in Eldorado Park, and in tremendous work around moving that community from health to safety to vitality. And I really appreciate her and childhood friend. All three of us grew up, in the Methodist church. Even though Gary is not township, part of a riot gang, we're able to, and so he's in a lot of part now. About that.
All right, let's tap in with Apostle Gary Lamont. Apostle Gary Lamont, how are you today?
Well, good morning to you, Greg.
Good morning, yes, sir.
To all your listeners, a very good morning, and from South Africa, a very good evening.
Yes, sir.
It's nighttime here for us.
What time is it there?
But it's good to be on your show. We just gone past 24 minutes after 6 p.m.
Ah, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's the time we're in South Africa now. Thank you so much for having us on the program, and thank you to Pastor Sauls for setting us up and making us have this connection.
Yes, this is really, really awesome. And, our condolences to your community and what you're going through there. Just tell us a little bit about what you're feeling right now.
Man, a lot of sadness, a lot of anger, very much disappointed in our law enforcement agencies, very much disappointed in how they dealt with the situation. There's a lot of anger, even up until today in the community. It's almost 2 weeks this week that Nathaniel Julius was shot and killed brutally by the law enforcement agencies. And it is still sadness.
I noticed in the news reports that people were taking to the streets in protest, and it looked like it just went all bad there because the folks, just succumbed to their rage, and it's very, very, powerful. The images that I'm seeing on the news reports are very, very powerful. I have a lot of friends in South Africa, Apostle Lamont. I'm just going to let you know that a lot of friends, and when we first started doing coffee conversations, one of my first ones was with a popular broadcaster over there. And so I'm saying, well, how are you holding up in quarantine? And she was like, man, the police are, really on a tear in terms of patrolling the streets of, during quarantine. She's like, man, I sent my son down to the store and they got hemmed up and taken to the police station, and it's just too much, and I couldn't believe it. I said, wow, is it that deep down there?
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
I must admit, we almost into our 5th month of quarantine. You can see me, your listeners can't, but I've put on some weight, man. Put on some weight, some body weight, and I didn't gym for that. I didn't go to the gym for that.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's pretty much hectic, but it's also necessary. It's also necessary for us to adhere to the regulations and the lockdown regulations, and we thank our president, man, for taking the bold step to take us into what we call level 5, which is the more severe kind of lockdown, where you can move nowhere, you stay indoors. The only places you can go to is to the grocery stores. And even there was a time where we couldn't even buy clothing because all of those shops were closed. And we thank our president for taking that steps. And that helped us where we are today with not having so much fatalities within our country. Yeah. Thumbs up to President Cyril Ramaphosa.
That's right. All right. Let's bring in Dr. Mary here. I see she's got, there's her smiling face. Good morning. Good afternoon. You got to unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Yeah.
There she is. Yay. All right. Great. Well, Dr. Mary, tell us a little bit about yourself and then tell us how you're feeling in view of the Nathaniel Julius case.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Greg. I've got my coffee. I don't see your coffee.
Oh, wait. Bill!
There you go.
Yes.
And then just to pay honor to our clergy, Pastor Calvin, and to Apostle Gary. It's always love. There we go. My big mugs. Yes, sir. And then also Apostle Gary, lovely to interact again with you. It's lovely to see you again. Yes, my name is Mary Adam. I'm a doctor, and I come from the same community as Pastor Calvin and Apostle Gary Lamont, and I serve in that community as well. But I'm stationed now in the west of Johannesburg, and that was just purely for safety reasons more than anything else. I wanted to buy a house in Eldorado Park, where I'm from, but as a single, beautiful lady, I decided I needed to just also take precaution on that side as well. So what I wanted to say on this is just the events that are happening not only in South Africa but in the United States of the SA deeply moves us, and we saw that from Sandra Bland up to now with George Floyd, and now with the similar case that had happened in Los Angeles. These cases move us deeply because we understand that it's an attack on not just humanity but on a particular race. It's as if we want to be moved out, and we have a part and we have a place in society and in the community, and we have value, and we want to contribute our talents, our gifts to society, and yet we it seems like they want to expire us, or they want to extinguish us from the world, and it's so unfortunate. And we can see that in Eldorado Park, where it's our youth that are being attacked time and time again. If it's not drugs, previously gangsterism, now it's the police that's coming in and attacking us. And of course, from a health perspective, there's various things that we can talk about, but it's such an unfortunate thing because you think you're winning on one end, and on the other end, we have to again pick up arms, and it's heartbreaking. and overwhelming.
All right, I see someone else here. This is looks like Dylan Valley. Good morning, Brother Dylan.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me, and great to see you all. And yeah, it's evening here, as you can tell by
Yes.
bad lighting in my apartment.
All right. Now, what are your feelings about the Nathaniel Julius case? And but just start out by telling us, give us a little bit of background. You're speaking to, all us Americans over here. We don't know you. No, just playing. But you talk to us about what you're doing, what's your advocacy, and then let us know your emotional feelings about the case of Nathaniel Julius.
Yes, so a little bit about me. I am a documentary filmmaker, and I've done work that speaks to the issues of the colored community, specifically around language, and talking about the Afrikaans language and how it started as a Creole language in Cape Town. I'm currently a lecturer at the University of Cape Town in film and media studies. And I'm also an Atlantic Fellow for Racial Equity, along with Pastor Sauls, who's on the call. So it's great to see him again on this call. And my feelings around this story is it's just absolute shock and sadness. And what's also clear is that it's the same story that's happening around the world in different ways, and how the same kind of patterns are repeated, because also if we're looking at the States, we share a lot of similarities in our history in terms of colonization and slavery. So all of these issues are a continuation of those times. But I can only really imagine what the family is going through. I've never been through anything like this personally in my own family. So my heart goes out to the family first and foremost, and I can only imagine the amount of pain, especially because it's those who are supposed to be in your community to keep you safe that are doing these kinds of things, and so it's completely unacceptable in any way, shape, or form.
All right. So listen, you guys, I want to just ask a couple of questions, and I'm going to preface everything by just repeating. So for me, I've been to South Africa many, many times. I have a annual trip that we bring people down for the Cape Town Jazz Festival. I have a ton of friends that I speak to on the daily over in South Africa. And I even could tell you a story about one time I went to South Africa and for a specific event and extended my stay so that I could rent a car, and I was driving all around South Africa. I hired a driver so I wouldn't get lost, but I did the driving. And so I'm driving around. I went to Zululand. I went up to Swaziland, and I was just in the mix, just seeing, what was going on. And if you were to turn around and look at talk to my friends about me, the colored Black situation for me confounds me deeply. Because when I look at those who consider themselves, who are colored in South Africa, I'm like, what are you talking about? It's a black man. I mean, that's like how I look at it. And a real short story, I was on the streets of Cape Town with my travel group, and we had taken them up to there's a store on called Molly South. It's on Long Street. And we take them there to buy their African clothing and everything. And I met a woman who was a parking attendant, meaning she was a person who made sure that the cars did not park, for a long time, and she would issue them citations or whatever. So we were just kind of chatting. And so she was curious why all these Americans, so you guys buy African clothing, and she wanted to know why. So it was a very deep conversation, and we began to talk about colored and Black, and we were literally standing on the sidewalk, and when people would walk by, she would say, "Oh, colored. I was like, no, black. And she just was cracking up. She really got a big kick out of it. And so when we look at this from through the Black American lens, when you all say colored, I can't see that. I see black people. You know what I'm saying? And I have had conversations even with colored people. I say, oh no, you be up shoot right there over in our hood. What are you talking about? And it's always an amazing sociological discussion. But now, be that as it may, can you all explain why the colored, the advocacy of the colored community in South Africa, why is it because the officers in post-apartheid, were they black or were they white?
Yeah, I think let me start.
I'll start off. Oh, go ahead, Apostle. Mm-hmm. Is it because the officers in
post-apartheid? I think let me start. When you look at the apartheid era, the white folk in our country had a specific classification for each color group. I remember when I grew up back in the day, they had a specific department for colored people, which they called Colored Affairs. So if you need to do something, you go to the Colored Affairs department. You cannot go to the Bantu Affairs or to the Indian Affairs department. You go to the Colored Affairs department. That is what they've done to us. They put us into these different classes of people. I remember one old lady told me a story when she went to go and register herself to get a pass. Those years it was a pass and not an ID. They used to take a little piece of stick and put it through her hair. If the stick goes through and it pulls through quick, then she's been classified as colored. But if it stucks a little bit in her hair, then she's classified black, although she's colored. She's classified as black. And that's how they've classified us over the years in our country with the apartheid system. And I don't like to call myself colored, though, even though now when I go and fill in forms at any government institution, they still have those classifications there. I don't complete that one because I see myself as African.
Yes, that's exactly a friend of mine said exactly what you just said. She said, "No, I consider myself African." I love that.
Yeah.
All right, Pastor Sauls, you're going to say something there on this issue here?
Yeah, I think the stage that the ideology and the theology is ideology and the theology supremacy. Around the humanization and the marginalization, and there was no, and South Africa that took place by racial paternity. One could call it also a caste system that was created in South Africa, even though I wouldn't go that far, but caste system works in India, for instance, and the U.S. talk about caste. Michelle Alexander talked about that in terms of the industrial complex. He now has a book out called Caste. So that will, I think, further enlighten how that, continues to operate in a white supremacist United States, right?
All right. So
as a result, a lot of us then place without our in various categories, our parents, our grandparents, etc., etc. And so, that was, how it, it pulled us in. For a lot of us, despite the categorization, we were clear about the fact that our fight is against, the ideology, the theology of apartheid, and liberation must take place for all of us. And
All
Dylan
right,
may
so
want to add anything else to that.
Right. So I have a question. So I'm trying to get the paradigm of the capture the paradigm of the actual, shooting. So were the officers, as we understand it, when we say police killing, we know for the most part is going to be a racial situation. Is that the case in this shooting here? Dylan, anybody?
I can start with that. So I think in South Africa we've got an interesting kind of relationship to the police, slightly different in America. So I think South Africans are slightly more ambivalent when it comes to police, and there's a little bit more of a gray area. So and this is just my reading of it. I'd love to hear Apostle Lamont and Dr. Adam talking about it. Because the thing is, while the majority of our police force are black, they inherited a police force and a system that was inherently racist and was set up to, like in the US, to police black people, and started with it began with the policing of slaves and of indigenous people and Africans in South Africa on the continent. So that's the lineage of the police force here. So you have a predominantly black police force that is then policing black communities mostly. And you've seen this with, in terms of with the coronavirus, right? So with the way that our lockdowns were enforced. I was in lockdown in a predominantly white neighborhood where my parents lived. My wife and I and my daughter, we moved in with them. So this was a neighborhood in Cape Town it used to be exclusively for whites, and now it's still, on the face readings, like 90% white still. And so we were in lockdown there, and you would never see police. But when you watch the news at night, on SABC, you see in the townships, the police are literally kicking people, shooting people, telling them to stay in their homes. So enforcing a lockdown through force. Now, I never saw one police car in my road where I was that entire time. So we would never arrest, basically. We could walk around. People were not supposed to be walking their dogs or doing stuff, etc. They were just doing it. There was no consequence for that. But you see people stand. We saw images of people just standing in line, trying to get groceries and being harassed by police and their dogs about keeping certain distance, things like that, in black communities. So in this way, yes, the police force is mostly black, and it's black police chiefs and so on, but they serve to police and harass black communities in ways that they don't with white communities. And so I think Pastor Saul was getting to this when he was saying they're still there to uphold the system of white supremacy and capital, the way that capital flows. So that's my reading of it, of the situation. And I hope that answers the question.
It absolutely does. Dr. Mary?
Yes, I agree that's what we see in our police stations across the country. But you'd also find that it's an attitude problem that we're having in our police stations. Whether you go to in the West Rand or the south of Johannesburg, when you walk into a police station, you don't feel safe. You don't feel like they're going to respond to you the way that you expect them to, whatever the case that you are presenting to them. And I can relay a story that has just come through our media platforms now of an incident that had happened, a gender-based violence incident, where you have a woman going in to report a case regarding her husband, assaulting her. And in the police station, you find that the police are there. and the husband manages to walk into the police station and kills her within the police station. So we're not safe in our police stations. So that's an attitude problem we're having. Then there's an attitude of corruption, because you find that the police are in cohesion, or they have relations with the wrongdoers in communities. So how is law enforcement actually upheld in these areas? And then just to bring back the historical part to it, because we want to respect our police officers, we want to hold them in high esteem. But how do we do that? Because now there's a fear, and at the same time there's a respect. So how do we balance those two? So it's difficult. And the images that came across, especially during lockdown, were very, very, very painful. Although we were saying we want to enforce lockdown, at the same time, humanity, there was a total disregard for it. And I'm sure either Pastor Calvin or Apostle will mention the Collins Khoza case, where you found that the South African National Defence Force used so much force on this man in his, or close to his home, that he passed away. So you can see the brutality that comes from it. And it was not a racial issue, but they would say that it's law enforcement. So how do you balance the scale between racism and law enforcement?
So we're talking about police culture, is what we're talking about. So when even in the face of liberation, and we are proud of, the liberation of South Africa, overcoming the forces of apartheid, white supremacy, we hold that near and dear to our hearts. And now that we are in control down there, we still have the vestiges of white supremacy disguised as police.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. All right.
Absolutely, Greg. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's focus on. I saw a news report where I know you guys have two different political parties. I would love to get Julius Malema on this show here to talk to the American people, because they're starting to notice him. Black Americans are starting to notice him this year in all of this protests they're starting to see on social media. People saying, "Oh, this brother in South Africa, look at him." I would love to get him on one time just to talk to the people. I'm trying to make it happen, but we'll see. But I see that the EFF came to Nathaniel's funeral, and the people in the community felt, extremely disrespected. Can you all speak to that? Why was it inappropriate for them to come? And was their appearance politicizing the death of young Nathaniel?
Yeah, man, if I can come in there, Greg, I think it was politicized because at one funeral, you almost had 5 political parties there. Mm-hmm. It was all for media, sensationalism, selling your political party, your own ideologies, your own policies. And I just want to answer one question that you asked earlier on about Nathaniel and who shot Nathaniel. It was not a white man. It was not a black man. It was a colored person. Oh. If you go that racial terms, it was a colored person that shot Nathaniel. And therefore, we talk about colored lives matters, which I fully support, but you cannot say in this instance, colored life matters, because it's a colored person that shot Nathaniel. So it's nothing to do with a race thing when it comes to Nathaniel and the police department. But coming back to your question about our friend and our comrade, I always want to say Amandla, which means power. But yeah, if you look at our comrade Julius Malema, I think he's a very vibrant, outspoken political leader. I might also admit I don't support much that he do. What I do support, though, is that he wants to get the black people out of the current state of poverty and inequality within our country. I support that sentiment of him. But what's currently happening, I support what he's doing, but I don't support the violence behind it. I don't support the violence behind it. He's a force to be reckoned with, I must be honest. He's really a force to be reckoned with within our political spheres in South Africa. But I think he still needs a lot of wisdom and grow up in a lot of areas of his life in order to run the country one day, if he so wished to do so. But he's a force to be reckoned with. So is his political party a force to be reckoned with within our country.
So let me ask you guys: so the South African police, what kind of training do they get? Because it sounds like, okay, so there's definitely abuse of power. There's dirty cops all over the place. You can see that. So what's their training situation like that to kind of mitigate, these types of behaviors? I guess, one question inside of me is like, what makes them think they can just go and kick people in line and just discriminately beat people down? I mean, people have human rights, I mean, in America, they're protected by the Constitution and all of that. And I think the Constitution and the pillars of freedom that are enshrined right there in Soweto. I see them on that in that little, what is that called? It's a little building right there in Freedom Square there where you could see the pillars of your Constitution. And so it's the right of every human being to, live life to the fullest. Yeah. So what kind of training do these guys have?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me,
Dr. Adam?
if I respond quickly, my colleagues respond to the training, but aside from the training, Greg, we must acknowledge the current culture is a carrier from and a racist South African piece. Pastor Gary Lamont made that clear. The death of Nathaniel had nothing to do with color. It had everything to do with culture, police culture. Everything to do with police corruption. All right. And questions, just like we ask here as Black Lives Matter, can the South African police be reformed? Okay. Or do we need to call for abolishment and start from scratch? I don't know. But one prophetic and a progressive pastor have a problem asking the hard questions and finding out those questions. On Saturday, the rally and the march, for the, at the sheriff's, we had some tension there as well. And so we were clear. These rallies and these, it's for the family. It's for, first, integrity, holding the police to a certain integrity to the oath that they've taken. It is for transparency that we hold them, to, and it is for accountability. So it's interesting that while I am at a Saturday afternoon rally in South LA, dealing with the challenge of a political candidate come and pain of the family. At the same time, in my hometown of South Africa, a political candidate shows up to try and do the same thing. We cannot underestimate the certainties and the comparisons around what happened, not just in the United States, but in South Joburg and what's happening in South Africa, but in South Johannesburg, because all the intersections and the parallels that connects, with, white. So now I'll let my colleagues talk about training that's needed, but I think we cannot miss the fact that the South African police service is a deep connection with how policing was done, through the apartheid regime.
So I'm just saying, people who choose that profession, are really believers in, the spirit of, the law of the land, and they certainly want to protect and to serve. So to me, that comes with a certain sense of responsibility and a certain sense of compassion, for the people. And I would think, and this is just Greg's observation, in a nation that has fought so hard for its liberation to overturn white supremacy, now the officers, colored or black, would protect and serve the communities in a way that is different than white supremacy. In other words, I'm thinking these officers would have just said, you know what, we're no longer going to police the old way. But what you guys are saying is they've embraced the old way and just brought it with them, just changed the color of of their authority, the color of their skin, they've still embraced these tools of white supremacy, of oppression, and still embrace them even in this new South Africa. We still gonna kick your ass if you you know what I'm saying, if we don't like what you say, and so that's what's going on here, is what I'm hearing.
No, but that was the sentiment that was at the beginning of lockdown, where they had said in an Afrikaans terminology, skop en donder, which means you're going to be kicked and you're going to be hit. So it's basically law enforcement by all means. So regardless of what they find you doing, they're going to come hard on you. So, and that it doesn't even just apply to the quarantine and COVID-19. We've seen this even when it came to looking at our legal immigrants in our country and certain areas in our society where they find themselves, where police would go in and then arrest our legal immigrants within the country. And that's what sparked a lot of what was viewed, or what is viewed, as xenophobic attack. Because most of that not only was from the community, but also was supported by law enforcement. So we see that quite often. Just briefly on the training, from what I understand that it's about a 6 to 18 month training program, quite intense. The first 2 weeks of that training really tries to sift out what they would call the weaklings. And after 2 weeks, if you can't take it, and then you're out of the system. But essentially, it's almost like military training for policing, for the police force. That's the understanding that I have. And I know this because I knew 2 candidates that had gone into the program and decided, you know what, besides just the training, the attitude from the trainers was not what they anticipated. And like you had said, it wasn't about upholding the law. It was just about, you know what, you are coming here and this is what we are doing, and a military styled type training. So they opted out of that training.
Mm-hmm. Now, Dr. Mary, what do you see a lot of trauma cases in your work, correct? How many of those are like police related?
Okay, so I work predominantly in maternity, so that's obstetrics and gynecology. And we were actually just discussing a case with one of my juniors, a resident. And this patient actually got caught up in a crossfire in the community. And this woman was about 8 months pregnant. And this patient had to go into theater immediately. We were called as obstetricians because there wasn't a fetal heart anymore. And when they had done the cesarean section, the baby had the fetus, and once the baby was delivered, had taken three bullets, basically. And so this is what saved the mother's life, but unfortunately, the baby did not survive. And we related that as well to gender-based violence in this time, that because there was an altercation and she unfortunately got caught in the crossfire. And so when we looked at it, we actually extended it even to the female fetus, and saying how profound this is, that even in the womb, a female fetus is not even safe. So when we're looking at in our department, particularly, we see violence from a point of gender-based violence. This is where we see it, and where the law enforcement comes in. Also, it's very traumatic for us as obstetricians, because what happens is that um, even up to a rape case, they would come in. There's no sympathy, which I can understand, but also there's no sense of protection. There's no sense of understanding what the patient is going through. There's also a lack of understanding of what the processes are, and you sort of feel like also you in a tight, intimidating situation. So that's one point of it. And even in terms of the referral system, so that's from a law enforcement, from a maternity side. Yes, surely in our hospital, we do see quite a number of traumatic cases. On that one particular call, the registrar had mentioned that they were from about 6 p.m. to about 9 p.m. There were already 6 traumatic cases that had entered into the hospital, including the maternity case. And that's a short space of time. Perhaps in the Cape, it's a slightly different, because in Cape Town, they reported that that's the highest number of gun violence that has been reported within South Africa. And Dylan can probably tell us about that. I worked in trauma as a junior physician, and it's not a pleasant sight from a medical point of view, because again, you find yourself in a situation where you constantly battling to save not only the person's life but your own emotion to that. And the hardest part is breaking bad news to that, especially when I mean, every life is important, but when you see young families destroyed by violence, particularly trauma in this nature, you can't even hold yourself sometimes, and you have to be the one that's holding everything together.
So Dylan, speak on that a little bit, and then let me just ask you, what's the okay, what do you want to see from the police? It sounds like we need more compassion, which is that's an old story. Like even here in the Los Angeles area, we needed more compassion, so they came up with community-based policing and all that whole thing. So Dylan, what do you think the police need to do to restore trust with the masses of the people?
Yeah, I mean that is a really great question in terms of how do we actually change the culture of policing. And I think the main thing would be, like you said, a community-based response where we kind of see policing as instead of kind of policing communities and keeping them in check, actually kind of assisting communities with what they say they need. So there need to be partnerships between community structures and the police in those areas as well, in terms of actually understanding what are the needs in this community and how does the police actually best serve the community. Because that's, when we made the transition into post-apartheid South Africa, the police changed the name from the South African Police Force to the South African Police Service. And the idea was that the whole police force would turn more into a service and not into a force that was actually there to kind of keep people in check. And the one thing I would say is, the realities on the ground are quite tough, because we have to also remember that police often come from these communities as well. So they are regular people who have a career path and sometimes want to serve their communities. So we have to be hard on the structures and easier on the people. And we have to find ways of building relationships with police and to kind of change the structures, because the structures need to change and the way that policing is enforced. And most of the time, the way that what the actual police service has done in a post-apartheid South Africa is to kind of prop up the power relations at play. And because of our transition into democracy, which was essentially a lot of people call it a miracle, and it was a bloodless transition, but actually what happened was the same wealth inequalities were kept intact. And because of the nature of global capitalist flows, it means that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer unless you put systems into place to make sure that doesn't happen. So if we had we had a less and equal society, there'd be less people who were drawn into crime, right? So if in '94 we adopted a strong socialist democracy, and we're able to redistribute wealth and really get down to transforming societies that everybody could have a stake in South African society, then you wouldn't have these high levels of crime. And on a personal level, I do often feel for police, women and men who are on the front lines, who are dealing with calls from communities where there are gangsters or where there's shootings, gender-based violence, things like that. So they have to go out and respond to these situations. It's also not safe for them, right? And so the situation itself is very complex, but it could be if there was a multi-tiered government response to actually creating a more equal society, we wouldn't be having a lot of these situations. Also, in terms of things like alcohol dependency, which leads to violence, right? So one of the things we also saw during COVID-19 was how addicted we are to alcohol in South Africa. And basically,
because they banned it, right? They banned alcohol sales when they went into quarantine. I read that.
Yeah, and Dr. Adam could probably talk about this. They had to ban it because the hospitals were full of alcohol-related violence cases of patients coming in. So banning alcohol outright was like something the government had to do to make sure we could treat coronavirus. I mean, that is quite something, I think. So this all speaks to kind of a sense of a lack of options, a lack of upward mobility for poor South Africans, and to feel like a stake in the country where they have security and options for them.
Yeah, quite the opposite happened here. They made it. They made sure that you could buy your alcohol, and also the marijuana shops. They made sure they stayed open, so you can get your weed and your and your drink while you're on quarantine. That's wow. That's really something. Yeah. Now, Apostle Lamont, let me ask you a question. I'm really a proponent for social justice through the church. And this is really, to me, really important. In the United States here, the Black church has always been, at the forefront of our struggle for liberation. And it always warms my heart to see, our church leaders, making a move to insist on social justice out here in our communities. Now, what are you seeing? First of all, talk about the church's role in the pursuit of social justice in South Africa. And then, what's the solution, the end all in the lesson learned in the Nathaniel Julius case? And what do you hope you'll see from the police? What's the good ending for that?
Well, if I can just take you a little bit back, many, many years ago, and I think even before I was born, we had some of our church leaders that marched to union buildings for the liberation of the Black people of our country. They marched to the union buildings. Some of them were locked up, brutally assaulted, but they were resolute in what they stood for. They did not budge. They wanted liberation for the Black people of South Africa. And that struggle never ended. We took it on when I became part of the clergy. I'm a firm believer that we cannot keep our mouth shut. We cannot be quiet about the injustices of our current government. And we were not quiet about the injustices of our previous government. It was Nelson Mandela that said, if this current government is doing to you what the apartheid government did to you, you must give them the same medicine that you gave the apartheid government. Treat them the same way. It was Nelson Mandela that said that. As the clergy, and as part of the clergy, I'm totally against all these injustices, and we are against it. We will stand up for it and fight it with all our might. I don't just believe in prayer, which is one of the things that I must do, but I also believe in taking action. And we are currently, and I'm not going to divulge much, but we are currently within our community, we are gathering all the clergy to make sure that justice for Nathaniel is being served. We are standing up. We believe it's the right thing to do. We believe we should not be silent about it. We should let our voices be heard, because throughout, people want the church to be quiet. They want the clergy to be quiet. They don't want us to meddle and get involved in politics. And like I said the other day, and I'll say it again on your show, Greg, I believe that throughout the Bible, the leaders of their time stood up and they spoke to the kings. They spoke to the authorities of the day, and they made their voices heard. And the clergy cannot be silent. I just want to take you a little bit back as well with the Nathaniel issue. The ammunition that was used on Nathaniel to kill him, that ammunition was banned in 2006. That ammunition they were not supposed to use on Nathaniel or on any person that they want to apprehend or that they want to shoot. It should not have been used. They used it on an innocent boy. They used it on a boy that couldn't speak for himself. And I believe as the clergy, we will go, as a matter of fact, we went to the local police station and as clergy, and we had a chat to the highest authority of that police station and made them known our dissatisfaction in the way they handle the case, the cover-up of the case. As the South African Council of Churches, we have the General Secretary that's part of us, and we will have a march very soon. That's all I can say now. We will have a march very soon as the clergy to express our dissatisfaction with our police services. And I like what Dylan said. In the apartheid years, it was the SAPS, the police, South African police. That's all they call them. Now when they came in, they said South African Police Services. In my heart, I said hooray, because now people are going to serve us, not knowing that they're going to not serve us, but they're going to ill-treat us and mistreat us. I just want to mention to you as well, about 2 weeks ago, we had a case of some folk in our congregation. About 12 o'clock at night, thugs went into the house, screamed, they opened the door, and thugs just shot randomly. They shot one of the brothers of the lady in our church. She was shot as well. She's been discharged. He's still fighting for his life this very moment. The police was called when the incident happened. It took them 3 to 4 hours to get to the house. Bear in mind that the house is 1 kilometer. I mean, the police station is 1 kilometer away from the house. It would have taken them 2 minutes to get to the house, but it took them 4 hours. They just got there, took some of the shells, and they left the scene. No photos taken, nothing being done up until this very moment. This happened 2 weeks ago, the same week of the death of Nathaniel. It happened. So our police services are not serving us as the community. They're not serving us. You know what we have in our community is what we call a community police forum, a CPF. We call it a community police forum. These are guys that volunteer to make sure that law and order is adhered to within our community. But the same police guys, when they are told about the atrocities of the drug lords or the gang, there's no gangsters in Aldos, the infightings, they are the guys that stand up against the CPF, the community police forums, and rather ignore their plea for the police to act. They cannot act, they can just report. That's all they can do. And I'm very, very upset with the way our police is handling cases. Lastly, from my side, when our ladies, our females are raped in our community, in our country as a whole, and they don't even go and report the cases to the police. They don't want to go and report the cases because when they get there, they look like the laughing stock. They get laughed at for reporting a crime. And bear in mind that our police don't even know how to handle it. They don't even know how to write out the statement. They don't even know what to say on there. We've got a language problem in El Dorado Park because we speak predominantly Afrikaans. And the people that's at the police station speaks a total different vernacular, total different language. They don't understand our people, so they cannot take a proper statement down even. I, as part of the clergy, we are saying enough is enough. We are going to stand up. We're going to let our voice be heard on behalf of our community. El Dorado Park has got 590,000 people living within the community. There's one police station in El Dorado Park. So can you imagine if you have real violence within different parts of El Dorado Park? It will take the police forever to get there if they get there.
So there's more people in El Dorado Park, a portion of Johannesburg, than there are in the entire city of Long Beach, where we are originating from. And I don't remember. I can't remember how many. I think there's more than 1,000 officers in Long Beach, and you only have one police station.
Yes.
Wow! And then
Yes.
just a point of education. I will come right back to you. Hold on. Just a point of education at this point for our American viewers. Understand, you all, there's like 11 official languages in South Africa. Your friends will speak like 4 or 5 languages. It's bananas. They, just really something. But go ahead, Apostle Lamont. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's actually 2 police stations, but they service different areas. The bulk of the people in our community, there's only one police station. One police station, and I think if my memory serves me right, there's not even 100 policemen.
Wow.
To serve a community of almost 500,000.
Wow. That's something else.
They've got 4 vans, police vans. 4 or 5, if my memory serves me right, police vans that must go and patrol and go and arrest people.
Wow. Wow. Isn't that something? I'm going to bring Pastor Sauls in. And while we're doing that, I want to, I want to get back to, I'm hearing you about the rapes and the gender-based violence. And I do recognize that is a very serious situation over there. I don't know if you know Dr. T there, Dr. Mary. You know Dr. T? She's in Johannesburg. She was on the radio. And that's a very good friend of mine. We're actually going to have her come on to talk about, gender-based violence and then her whole advocacy about making the sex workers legal, or however that goes. And it's a very interesting conversation. But I have to say that as I do have so many friends in South Africa, and I, talk to all of my friends over there all the time, and I read the headlines, the gender-based violence it's deep. What I'm reading there, and I don't know quite what to say about it, but we are going to have a show about it, because I really think that the Black American community needs to have become aware of that situation. I will say, as a sidebar, so I went to dinner with my friend who's a broadcaster, and she had one of her friends drive us around, and we met her family and everything. Went to Pata Pata in Johannesburg. So as we were all, had a great time, ate, drank, had a great time, and so the guy comes back to pick us up, and I open the door for her to get in, and I get in the back seat, and the guy at the wheel just goes. And I go, what do you mean? It was like, what was wrong with that? And so as we began to discuss this instance, I said, so me opening the door for her is a sign of weakness. And the brother looked at me and said, yes. And so, I can see that very, that even though that's a minor level of social interactions, I see this manifesting itself in its darkest places through this violence and rape that I see. There's a definite rape culture in some areas of South Africa. And we are going to examine that, Dr. Mary. So I would love to have you come back to join that conversation.
It will be great to be part of it. Thank you so much.
Yes. All right. So Pastor Sauls, we've got quite the education here, my brother.
Yes, again, man, thank you for the platform, and I'm so glad a lot of our folk here joined in the US and in Los Angeles. Again, each section that is because white supremacy is global. Let's be real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Both the United States and in Africa, a lot of us are infected with internalized racism and affect Africa right now is going through a challenging time. We might be having the most progressive constitution, we have the most regressive economic system based on trickle-down economics, and it's based on racial capitalism. And that system must be transformed. If it is not transformed, then there will continue to be the exorbitant levels of poverty we will see. We will continue to see the cultural income from our police service. In fact, for me, the S in SAPS stands for suppression, because that's what it's about. This government continues to use the defense force as well as the police force as weapons of suppression. We saw that at Ghana, that the was involved in some force. He owned a lot of stuff. You have to talk about it is about serve to law enforcement. We must hold them, to it's about transparency, because people what they're doing, accountability is key, because nobody is above the duties, just like life of Brianna Day matters, just like the life, so many of our brothers and sisters, around this country and in South Africa, they matter. We have to make sure that they matter, and I'm so proud of Apostle Gary Lamont and our faith leaders there. Really, prophetic stands. This is what we did throughout apartheid, and we are supporting them by seeing how we can rekindle, in collaboration with the South African Council of Churches, how we can rekindle that prophetic voice and that progressive will take place. And so for Black Lives here in Los Angeles, with the community in the United States, global community.
Yeah, Pastor Sauls, I'm gonna say this to you, and I'm gonna say this to you. I want to ask these questions to everybody, actually. Okay, so first of all, before we go, we're gonna certainly ask each and every one of you to share with us, how we can get a hold of you. But I have this question for you all, Dylan, Dr. Mary, Apostle Gary. So I was in Cape Town, and I have some friends down. I usually come with a big tour group, but because now I have so many friends, sometimes after I have my responsibilities with my group, my friends come and take me, and I go to their, they take me, to the hood. And so I was in Cape Town, and my friends came and they picked me up, and I went into Langa. And we went to we were actually trying to form a music festival, and they wanted my help. So they were taking me to all of these places to experience the music of Langa. It was fascinating. The food was good. The people were, it was just off the chain. Was I in danger?
Probably not. Probably
Yes.
not.
You still here? I'm joking.
Yeah, we made it back home.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. I just want, I just wanted to know because it was, I had a blast. It was off the chain. I really had a good time. I ate so much. I'm a big foodie, so I ate so much, and the music was great, and I met so many nice people. The woman who came to drive us, we actually learned that she and I were the same age, and we began to, kind of contrast our experiences. She was in District 6, grew up there, and she had, tremendous stories about District 6. I'm a child of the civil rights movement. I have stories, and, we were like, wow, really? Oh, man, and we were kind of contrasting our experiences. And she was one of those who could not believe that. I told her, I said, well, if you come to LA, you black. And she could not believe it. She was like, what? And it was just kind of interesting cultural dialogue. And I really, really want to do that. So, Apostle Gary, I come to Cape Town. Where am I coming to church?
I didn't hear that clearly.
So I said,
correct?
okay, if I'm in Cape Town, where am I coming to church?
Now, if you're in Cape Town, you cannot come to our church. Because I'm in
Johannesburg.
My bad.
Okay, all right. Well, shoot, I make Johannesburg. I go to Joburg first.
Joburg.
That's where I land. Okay, so where do I come to church?
please stop over and come to our church at any time. It will be an honor to have you. You can come and see some of our crazy African people. How they what we call jabula. How they just give themselves. They just give themselves a great time.
What's the name of your church?
It'll be good to have you, Greg. It's called Jireh. It's called Jireh Ministries.
Jireh Ministries. All right.
Yeah, like JIREH, which simply means provide.
Yes,
God provides.
yes. Jehovah Jireh.
Yeah. There you go.
Yes,
There you go.
All right. And then what were you going to say, Pastor Sauls?
I was going to say, when I bring groups, to South Africa, and I go to hometown, that's where we worship. And we receive extraordinary hospitality from Jireh. So that's my church that I go to and hang out, and I bond, and my Jireh family always takes care of my folks.
All right. Okay. And then how can we get a hold of you? What's the website there, Apostle Gary?
www.jirami.co.za. jirami.co.za. You can check our website out.
Yeah.
And like Dr. Mary said, you can check the handsome man on our website.
That's right. Good stuff. All right, Dr. Mary, how can we get a hold of you?
Well, I'm predominantly on Facebook with the same handle, Mary Augusta Adam.
Mm-hmm. All right. Brother Dylan, how can we get a hold of you?
I'm on all the social media platforms. If you just Google me, you can find my name, Dylan Valley. There's not a lot of us Dylan Valleys out there in the world, so I'm sure you guys will find it.
All right. That's what's up. Well, look, next time when the borders open up and everything, I am coming to see all of y'all. We're going to have continue this dialogue, and feel free to reach out to us anytime too, so we can continue this linkage. We're about building bridges of music, arts, and culture. This is in the culture category. We want to stand together in spirit with you as we stand against, police violence, unjustified police violence in our communities. We want to change culture is what I'm learning out of this. We've got to change culture, because oftentimes it's not always about, race. It's just about the culture. And that means we have to have a renewing of the spirit. And that's what these good people here are all about, and dedicating their advocacy with us. Thank you all so much for coming. Pastor Sauls, man, you are a champion, my brother. Thank you so much. I can't hear him too well. Oh, there he is.
I know that difficult concern creation, God is concerned of faith. I gotta be concerned about it too.
That's right. That's right. All right, everybody. So listen, there it is. There we're at the end of our time, but this has been a fascinating. Like this broadcast, share it. We're gonna as soon as we get off, send it out across the world is what our designed audience. We boost these posts so that as many people as possible can see it. You can see it on demand at beachcityradio.com, beachcityradio.com. And of course, on the page, Coffee Conversations with Greg J. On the Facebook page, Kalimba Song Coffee Company, and also on YouTube. We're trying to, expand our YouTube situation there. And so just go on there, tell a friend all about it. On Thursday, I think we're going to be talking about y'all remember the Los Angeles Black Business Expo? Well, you know what? They're coming back and they're virtual, and we're going to be in support of that fantastic effort. And prayerfully, we're going to have some people that you have heard of. I won't quite announce them quite yet, but just keep watching our pages once it's all locked in stone. But you're going to have some people on there that are going to talk about the Los Angeles Black Business Expo and motivate you to keep your business going, uplift your business, because too, the struggle is economics. We want to make sure that we are a viable community sustaining itself. All right. That's what it is. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. I love when we connect with Africa. Just since we've been doing this, we've been to South Africa twice. We've done Kenya. We've done Ghana. It's just really a beautiful thing to keep building these bridges of arts and culture and just dialogue with our brothers and sisters over on the continent. This is essential to who we are here in America. That's what I believe, and we'll always be about that. Thank you, Apostle Gary. Thank you, Dr. Mary. Thank you, Brother Dylan. And thank you, Pastor Sauls. Everybody, you know what it is. Love one another. Love one another. Love one another. Peace and blessings.